The wobbly door. The wind wasn't just blowing, it was clawing at the house. Lily wrestled with the key, the old brass resisting her trembling fingers. Finally, with a protesting click, the lock gave way. She pushed against the heavy oak, and the door groaned open, revealing the shadowy interior. But it didn't open smoothly. It lurched, caught, and scraped against the frame with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Lily winced, shoving harder. The door swung inward at a precarious angle, wobbling on its hinges. It felt wrong, dangerous. Like it might give way completely with one good shove from the wind, or worse, from someone on the other side. She heaved her suitcase inside, the wheels bumping over the uneven threshold. As she reached back to pull the door closed, a gust of wind slammed it against the jamb with a force that rattled the entire house. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of moonlight slicing through the gloom. "Great," she muttered, struggling to latch the bolt. It took 3 tries, each accompanied by a metallic screech that echoed through the silent house, before it finally caught. Even then, the door rattled in its frame, a constant, unnerving reminder of its instability. Lily leaned against the wobbly door, her heart pounding. It wasn't just the wind. It was the unsettling feeling that settled in her stomach, a cold knot of anxiety. This was her grandmother's house, filled with memories, with the scent of lavender and the comforting murmur of Nana Rose humming in the kitchen. Now, it just smelled dusty and vulnerable. She remembered Nana Rose, small but strong, effortlessly managing this same door. She'd swing it open with a cheerful, "Come in, love," always ready with a cup of tea and a story. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, trying to conjure that image, that feeling of safety and warmth. But all she felt was the chill seeping from the drafty hallway, and the tremor in the door beneath her hand. Taking a deep breath, Lily pushed herself away from the door. "Okay," she said aloud, her voice sounding small and reedy in the vast, silent house. "First things first. Check the rest of the locks." She moved through the house, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, revealing furniture draped in white sheets like ghostly figures. Each window, each back door, she checked meticulously. They were all secure, but the front door was the weak point. The gaping maw that threatened to swallow her whole. Back in the entryway, Lily ran her hand along the doorframe, feeling the loose screws and crumbling wood. It was worse than she thought. She could probably push it open with one good shoulder charge. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She was alone here. Completely and utterly alone. In her grandmother's house, yes, a place filled with echoes of love and laughter, but now, just a shell. A fragile sanctuary against a world that felt increasingly unpredictable and menacing. The wind howled again, a mournful cry that seemed to mock her solitude. Lily wrapped her arms around herself, the cold seeping into her bones. She needed to fix that door. A friendly neighbor. The late afternoon sun painted the clapboard houses in hues of peach and rose. Lily wrestled with the front door, her canvas bag digging into her shoulder. The old wood stubbornly refused to budge, sticking as it had ever since the last rain. She heaved again, muttering a frustrated sigh. Across the neatly trimmed lawn, Mark Olson knelt amidst a riot of color. His garden, a stark contrast to the otherwise uniform yards on Willow Creek Lane, was a vibrant explosion of petunias, zinnias, and sunflowers, all nodding gently in the breeze. He wore faded denim overalls and a worn-out baseball cap shading his eyes as he carefully pruned a climbing rose, the clippers snipping with practiced precision. The air hummed with the buzz of bees drawn to the sweet nectar. He glanced up, drawn by Lily's muffled groan. He watched her struggle for a moment, a flicker of concern crossing his face. He set the clippers down on a terracotta pot, wiped his hands on his overalls, and ambled over, his gait a little stiff. "Having a bit of a tussle there?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. Lily jumped, startled. "Oh, Mark. I didn't see you." A blush crept up her neck. "This darn door. It's been sticking for weeks. I feel like I'm going to break my shoulder trying to open it." He chuckled, a dry, almost rusty sound. "Old houses. They have a mind of their own." He ran a calloused hand along the warped frame. Looks like the wood's swollen. Probably needs a good planing. Lily leaned against the doorframe, relieved. I wouldn't even know where to begin. She kicked a loose pebble with the toe of her worn sneaker. Well, Mark said, his eyes crinkling at the corners, I dabble a bit in carpentry. My wife, God rest her soul, she always had some project or another going. I picked up a few things. He paused, the cheerful afternoon suddenly muted by a shadow. I could take a look at it for you, if you like. Save you the expense of calling a handyman. Oh, Mark, would you? That would be amazing. Lily's face lit up. I'd really appreciate it. I can bake you a pie or something in return. He waved his hand dismissively. No need for that. Just glad to help. How about I come by tomorrow morning? I'm usually finished up in the garden by then. Perfect, Lily said, a genuine smile gracing her lips. Thank you so much. She pushed gently, and the door finally creaked open. Mark nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. All right then. See you tomorrow. He turned back towards his garden, the vibrant colors seeming to deepen as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Lily watched him for a moment, a sense of warmth spreading through her. Maybe Willow Creek Lane wasn't so lonely after all. Toolbox and butterflies. Lily buffed at an invisible speck on the immaculate counter, her anxious face a wavering reflection in the polished stone. He'd specified late afternoon. Well, it was now. She hadn't admitted to herself the keenness of her anticipation. Absurd. It was only a warped door. Yet, the image of Mark, capable hands at work, sparked a warmth that banished the customary chill of her diminutive cottage. She smoothed the fabric of her floral dress. Too much effort. A glance at the riot of wildflowers exploding from their vase yellows, purples, and crimson gave her pause. Perhaps. She plucked a browning petal from a daisy, fingers betraying her composure. A light knock sent a jolt through her. Heart a frantic drum against her ribs, she inhaled deeply, smoothed the dress a final time, and pulled open the door. Sunlight kissed Mark's silver hair as he stood on the porch, a familiar toolbox clutched in his hand. The faded blue work shirt and jeans spoke of practicality. He exuded competence underscored by kindness. Lily, he greeted, smile lines deepening around his eyes. Ready for this recalcitrant door? Yes, come in, she replied, retreating slightly. The mingled aromas of freshly cut wood and a subtle, compelling masculinity drifted into the cozy space. He set down the toolbox with a muffled thud. So let's see the patient. She guided him down the cramped hall to the offending bedroom door, askew in its frame, the latch a testament to misalignment. It started sticking weeks ago, but yesterday it simply surrendered. Mark's fingers traced the bowed wood, brow creased in thoughtful assessment. He scrutinized the hinges, latch, and frame. Humidity's the culprit. Classic case of wood swelling. We can remedy this. The metallic song of tools being unearthed from the toolbox resonated with a surprising intimacy in the still air. He extracted a chisel and small hammer. Lily found herself captivated, observing the intense focus etched on his face, the subtle play of muscles beneath his worn shirt. He met her gaze, a slow smile blooming. Find something intriguing. A ridiculous flutter ignited within her, like a trapped bird desperate for flight. Just appreciating your skill. The words felt flimsy, even to her. A low chuckle, a resonant hum, vibrated through the room. Well, don't admire too much. I might lose concentration. He winked, then refocused on the door, the chisel now gently coaxing the wood. Yet, the atmosphere had thickened, thrumming with an unspoken energy that stole Lily's breath. The perfume of wildflowers, the scent of sawdust, and something else, something undeniably electric, charged the air. A brush of hands. Mark crouched, his shadow falling long across the faded floral rug Lily had salvaged from her grandmother's attic. He ran a callous thumb along the swollen jamb of the back door, the wood splintering slightly under the pressure. Definitely seen better days, he murmured, more to the door than to Lily. He smelled faintly of earth and something else, something like the clean, sharp scent of cut pine. Lily stood behind him, her palms damp. The kitchen suddenly felt small, the air thick. The rhythmic tick-tock of the cuckoo clock above the sink seemed amplified, each chirp a tiny hammer blow against her nerves. She'd called him over-expecting. What, exactly? A quick assessment, maybe a referral to a handyman she couldn't afford. She hadn't anticipated the quiet intensity he brought, the way he focused on the task at hand, his brow furrowed in concentration. The frames rotted through in a few spots, he said, pointing with a long, tanned finger. See here. And here. As he gestured, his hand brushed against hers. A fleeting, accidental contact, barely there. Yet, a jolt, sharp and unexpected, shot up her arm, leaving a tingling residue in its wake. It was as if a live wire had been exposed, and she'd inadvertently touched it. Her breath hitched. She instinctively recoiled, pulling her hand back as if burned. She hoped he hadn't noticed. The last thing she needed was for him to think she was forward. Sorry, he mumbled, his cheeks flushing a shade darker. He straightened up, his gaze flicking towards her face, and then quickly away, focusing on the chipped paint of the door. Didn't mean to, well. Lily swallowed, trying to regain some semblance of composure. It's fine, she managed, her voice a little too high-pitched. She busied herself by fiddling with the hem of her apron, avoiding his eyes. So, is it fixable? He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair, leaving a smudge of something dark on his forehead. Yeah, fixable. Needs some new wood, some patching. Probably take a few hours, maybe a day, depending on how deep the rot goes. He hesitated, then added, I could probably do it. If you want. The offer hung in the air, thicker than the scent of the apple pie cooling on the counter. It wasn't just about the door anymore. She could feel it in the way he avoided her gaze, in the subtle shift in his posture. That would be amazing, she said, the word feeling a little too breathless even to her own ears. She chanced a quick glance at him. His eyes, the color of warm honey, met hers for a fleeting moment before darting away again. The silence stretched, filled only with the frantic chirping of the cuckoo clock. Lily wondered if he could hear the frantic hammering of her heart, too. Stripped screws and close quarters. Mark swore under his breath, the sound muffled by the awkward angle he was contorted into. He wrestled with the screwdriver, his brow furrowed in concentration. Blast it all, he muttered, finally pulling back. Stripped. Lily, perched on the edge of her worn armchair, watched him with concern. Stripped? What does that mean? He held up the offending screw, the head chewed and useless. Means the screwdriver can't get a grip. Someone tried to fix this before, and they didn't do a very good job. Now the screw just spins. He sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. Makes getting the hinge off a real pain. Lily bit her lip. She felt a pang of guilt, she should have just bought a new door. Is there anything we can do? Mark rummaged in his toolbox, a worn leather affair overflowing with various tools. Well, we could try a rubber band trick, see if that gives the screwdriver some purchase. Or. He paused, considering. Or we could try forcing the screw out while stabilizing the wood. It's tricky, though. Need a steady hand. He looked at her, a silent question in his eyes. I can try, she offered, a nervous flutter in her stomach. The thought of working so closely with him made her palms sweat. All right. He rummaged again, producing a thin chisel. Here. You need to hold this against the frame, right next to the hinge. Keep it firm, apply pressure outwards. That should stop the wood from splitting further when I try to pry the screw out. He demonstrated, his hand briefly covering hers to position the chisel correctly. The contact was fleeting, but it sent a jolt through her. She could feel the warmth of his skin, the slight roughness of his calloused fingers. He stood back, assessing her stance. Okay, ready? I'm going to need to lean in close, get a good angle on this. Lily nodded, her throat suddenly dry. He moved in, his body brushing against her arm. The scent of sawdust and something uniquely him, a warm, earthy aroma filled her senses. She held her breath. He positioned the screwdriver, his arm reaching across her to steady the chisel. Their faces were inches apart. She could see the fine lines around his eyes, the flecks of gold in his brown irises. He was so close she could feel the warmth of his breath on her cheek. Okay, he murmured, his voice low and focused. Hold steady. I'm going to try to force it, now. He put his weight behind the screwdriver, the muscles in his arm straining. Lily gripped the chisel tighter, her knuckles white. The wood groaned under the pressure. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sickening screech, the screw finally gave way, popping free and clattering to the floor. They both froze, their faces still close, the shared tension hanging in the air. Lily could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a frantic rhythm echoing the silence. He looked at her, his gaze lingering on her lips. The air crackled with unspoken words, with a desire that was suddenly, undeniably, mutual. A shared loneliness. The latch clicked home, the sound a crisp punctuation mark to his effort. Mark straightened, swiping his forehead with a grime-streaked hand. That should do it. Solid as ever. I appreciate it, Mark, Lily responded, her smile genuine, warming his face. The moment hung, then shattered as a violent crash reverberated from the floor above, making her gasp. It resembled a bookshelf giving way. Her pupils dilated with sudden anxiety. What on earth was that? He instinctively moved to shield her, a protective gesture that stirred something unexpected within her. Stay put. Let me investigate. He bounded up the stairs, the wood protesting beneath his work boots. She remained below, her pulse quickening. Moments passed before Mark reappeared, a touch chagrined. False alarm. Just a cascade of antique hardbacks taking an unscheduled dive. You all right? Lily gave a shaky nod, though equilibrium felt distant. The jarring sound had unraveled her composure, amplifying the desolate silence she'd struggled to ignore. Just, jittery. He lingered on the landing, his expression softening with concern. This house groans and whispers. Especially when it's echoing with emptiness. The words landed between them, heavier than lead. She occupied herself fiddling with his discarded tools, avoiding his eyes. It's definitely quiet, she confessed, the admission a breathy murmur. He closed the distance between them, a subtle shift that brought her within the orbit of his warmth. It's all right to be lonely, Lily. The carefully constructed barriers crumbled. I miss her, she blurted, her voice catching in her throat. Grandma. It's only been weeks, but this place feels like a shell without her. A shadow crossed Mark's face. He understood the topography of grief, the hollow chambers of empty houses. Reaching out, his hand hovered, then settled with gentle reassurance on her arm. I know the feeling, he said, his voice low and resonant. After Sarah, after she was gone, this place felt like a mausoleum. Each creak, every settling sound, a constant echo of what was missing. He withdrew his hand, slipping it into his jeans pocket. I spent months letting the garden run wild. Couldn't summon the energy to care. Then, I noticed this one rose bush, choked by weeds, still determined to flower. Something about its tenacious spirit. I don't know. I started weeding. Fixed the sagging fence. Gave the shed a new coat. It didn't resurrect her, but it gave me purpose. Something to cultivate instead of just watching decay. He locked eyes with her, his gaze brimming with a quiet empathy. Sometimes, Lily, a little labor is all it takes to banish the ghosts. The raw sincerity in his tone was disarming. A spark of something akin to hope flickered within Lily as she met his gaze. Perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't quite so utterly alone in her grief. Lemonade and sunflowers. The last splinter of wood popped free, leaving the doorframe ragged but liberated. Mark stepped back, wiping his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of sawdust on his temple. "Right," he said, that warm rumble vibrating through the quiet of the late afternoon. "That's the worst of it. I can grab some tools from my place tomorrow and get a proper patch in." Lily, still perched on the arm of the floral sofa, felt a surge of relief mixed with something else, disappointment. The fix was happening. Soon, he'd be gone. "That's incredibly kind of you, Mark. I really appreciate it." He turned, his eyes crinkling at the corners, a smile playing on his lips. "Least I could do." "Say, you wouldn't happen to have any lemonade, would you? This old man's getting parched." Lemonade. The word sounded so domestic, so normal. It was a perfect excuse to prolong the moment. "I think I do. Just made a batch this morning, actually." She stood, a little too quickly, and headed towards the kitchen, her heart doing a funny little flutter kick. The lemonade pitcher was nestled in the fridge, condensation beating on its glass surface. She poured 2 glasses, adding a sprig of mint from the little pot she kept on the windowsill. When she returned to the living room, Mark was standing on the porch, looking out at her overgrown garden. "Here you go," she said, offering him a glass. He took it, his fingers brushing hers. A tiny spark, barely perceptible but undeniably there. "Thanks, Lily. Mind if we take this outside? The porch is lovely." They settled on the porch swing, its gentle creaking a soothing counterpoint to the chirping crickets. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle and freshly cut grass. "So," Mark began, swirling the lemonade in his glass. "Tell me, Lily Bellwether, what does a woman who lives in a house overflowing with books do with her days?" She laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound. "Mostly read, if I'm being honest. And I paint a little. Dabble in pottery. Try to keep the weeds from taking over the garden." "Ah, a woman of many talents," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I'm a bit of a gardener myself. Mostly vegetables, but I have a weakness for sunflowers. Planted a whole row of them this year. They're nearly taller than me now." Sunflowers. Her favorite. A tiny thrill shot through her. "Sunflowers are my favorite too. I used to draw them constantly when I was a kid." He leaned back against the swing, the setting sun painting his face in hues of gold and amber. "Lost my wife, Sarah, a few years back. Gardening was her passion. I just sort of kept it up, you know. Keeps me connected to her." A wave of empathy washed over Lily. She knew what it was like to feel that kind of loss, the gaping hole left behind by someone you loved. "I understand," she said softly. "It's a beautiful way to remember her." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sound the gentle creak of the swing, and the buzzing of a lone bee flitting among the honeysuckle. The air felt charged, not just with the coming night, but with something else entirely. Something that hummed beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. Mark took a long sip of his lemonade. "This is perfect, Lily. Just the thing." He paused, then looked at her, his eyes serious now. "You know, I've lived next door for a while, but I feel like I'm just getting to know you now." Lily met his gaze, her heart pounding. "Me too, Mark. Me too. The fixed door, a new beginning. The final screw word into place." Mark straightened, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. The door, no longer sagging and sullen, stood flush against the frame. He turned the knob, the latch clicking smoothly into the strike plate. "There you go, Lily. Good as new." Lily approached cautiously, pushing the door open and closed. The familiar groan was gone, replaced by a quiet, reassuring thud. A genuine smile bloomed on her face. "It's perfect. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it." He gathered his tools, the metal clinking softly in the afternoon quiet. "Happy to help. Reminded me of fixing things up for." He trailed off, a shadow crossing his face. Lily instinctively knew he was thinking of his wife. It's good to have skills like that, she said softly, hoping to steer him away from the somber path. Makes you feel capable. Mark nodded, a faint smile returning. He glanced at the overgrown patch of earth beside the porch. Speaking of capable, what are your plans for this garden? Lily shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. I was thinking of planting sunflowers. I love how they follow the sun. But I haven't really gotten around to it. Sunflowers, eh? Mark's eyes twinkled. I've got a real knack for those. My wife used to say I could charm them out of the ground. Tell you what, I'll come by tomorrow afternoon, and give you a hand. 2 sets of hands are always better than 1 when it comes to digging. Hope flickered in Lily's chest. Really? That would be wonderful, Mark. He winked. Consider it payment for the lemonade. He hoisted his toolbox. I should get going. Got a few things to take care of before nightfall. Lily walked him to the edge of the porch. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow, he confirmed, his gaze lingering on hers for a moment longer than necessary. He turned and walked down the path, his gait surprisingly light for a man his age. Lily watched him go, the fixed door a solid presence behind her. The setting sun cast long shadows across the yard, painting the overgrown grass in hues of gold and amber. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak tree, whispering promises of warmth and growth. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt a sense of security settle within her. The door was fixed, the garden held the promise of sunshine, and a new beginning felt within reach. She touched the smooth wood of the doorframe, a small, contented smile playing on her lips. Agnes's wisdom. The insistent trill of the phone sliced through the late afternoon quiet. Lily glanced at the caller ID. Agnes. Her grandmother's calls were usually reserved for Sundays, which made this Wednesday afternoon summons feel significant. A knot tightened in Lily's stomach. Agnes. Everything all right? Lilybug, of course everything's all right here in sunny Florida. Just checking in on my favorite granddaughter. You sound different. Like you swallowed a canary. Lily chuckled weakly. Agnes always had a way of seeing right through her. It's nothing, really. Just had someone over to fix the door. The door. Still giving you trouble, that old thing. Couldn't get Mr. Henderson from across the street to take a look. No, I asked Mark. A beat of silence. Lily could practically hear Agnes's mind working overtime, piecing together the fragmented information. Mark? From next door. Well, isn't that neighborly? And did he fix it, this Mark? Yes. He fixed it perfectly. Lily's voice caught slightly on the last word. And that's why you sound like you swallowed a canary. Agnes pressed gently. Lily sighed, sinking into the worn armchair. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the living room floor. He did more than fix the door, Agnes. It's hard to explain. There was this connection. Something unexpected. She recounted the afternoon, stumbling over descriptions, trying to convey the electricity that had crackled between them. She spoke of Mark's calloused hands, the way he'd looked at her, the shared laughter over a stubborn screw. Agnes listened patiently, interjecting only with the occasional or I see. When Lily finished, a long silence stretched between them, filled only with the faint static of the long-distance connection. Well, Lilybug, Agnes finally said, her voice soft but firm. Sounds like that door wasn't the only thing that needed opening. Lily blushed, even though Agnes couldn't see her. I don't know what to do, Agnes. It's been so long since I've felt anything like this. Honey, sometimes life throws you a curveball when you least expect it. You've been playing it safe for too long. Don't let fear hold you back from happiness. Agnes's voice gained strength, the years melting away with her conviction. This Mark sounds like a good man. Don't overthink it, Lily. Just see where it goes. But what if? Lily started to protest, the anxieties bubbling up. No what ifs, sweetheart. Just trust your gut. And for heaven's sake, stop living like a hermit. You deserve some joy in your life. Call him up. Invite him for supper. Show him that prize-winning rhubarb pie you make. Agnes chuckled, a warm, familiar sound that chased away some of Lily's unease. Now you promise me you'll at least consider it. I promise, Agnes, Lily said, a small smile finally gracing her lips. Good. Now, I have to go. Myrtle's cat is stuck in the bougainvillea again. But remember what I said, Lilybug. Open that door wide and let the sunshine in. The line went dead, leaving Lily feeling lighter, a spark of hope flickering in her chest. Maybe Agnes was right. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid and embrace the possibilities that lay just beyond her newly repaired door.